Welcome to the Daily Dev Talk with me, Adrian Nantchev, where we explore and share experiences, stories, and lessons 7 days a week from across the games industry, helping you make the best game you can. Stay tuned for today's episode. Good morning, Overload Nation. Adrian here, and I am with Ruud Koreevra to talk about his latest game, Zenzizenzic, from his studio, Bithoffel. Ruud, what can you tell us about yourself first, please? Like, how did you get into the games industry?
Hello, well, thank you first for having me. Glad to be here and happy to share my experiences from the game development exercises I've had over the past while. So, well, I started about 2 years ago in the industry. I finished my master's degree, which didn't really have to do much with game development. But I figured, hey, I've played games for all my life, so why just not give it a go? And pretty soon after that, Zenzizenzic started to came about. It started pretty simply with just squares and stuff, but it evolved pretty slowly over time. And in the end, we're pretty near release right now, so it's been pretty exciting.
Oh, so it's like a labour of passion. You did this at university, so you wanted to continue it and do it yourself and do it on your own, or started your own studio.
Yes, it definitely started as a passion project, and overall,
Mm.
it's just started to grow and grow and grow more into being able to sustain myself with it. So it just became a job over time, actually.
Have you worked on any other games at all by yourself, or in general, aside from at university?
No, no, this is my first project, my first game
Ah,
development project. So I started pretty much without any knowledge about game development, and I just taught myself everything and see how far I could be able to go. And so far, it's been pretty well.
that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So let's tell us about your game as well. Tell us about your game and what you wanted the player to experience at the start.
Well, Zenzizenzic is a twin-stick shooter with a bunch of brutal influences. It has an abstract art style, pumping music, hectic action, screen-filling weapons, all that good stuff. And it features old-school scrolling gameplay, and also it features a roguelike inspired open-world mode, so you have these two wildly different gameplay experiences. And it's the
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, sorry.
please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, hard. And yeah, like I said, it's developed just by me, and it's going to be published by Adult Swim Games, available on
Mm.
Steam later on in July.
I noticed that you jam packed it with value. You've got like a classic mode and a macro mode, and then there's all sorts of different branches within that. Like there's a bonus levels, boss levels, and also there's a gauntlet mode. So you've gone really beyond just a simple twin stick shooter. I feel, which is amazing because you've got a lot of replayability in it.
Yeah, yeah. I just started with a simple package of building a levels and seeing what kind of new levels I could find and what kind of new mechanics I could be able to implement. But over time, I just kept on growing and growing. Like I said before, when I started out, I didn't know anything. But as you go on, you learn more about what you can do and what you can't do, and you start shoving that into the game and see what happens. And so far, some
Holy,
things worked, some things didn't, and what's worked so far just stayed in the game, and it's been pretty good.
oh yeah, and I love the music as well. It really matches the scenario as well. One thing I found a little odd, and it's in beta, so it might not be that bad, is that I found it a little difficult to distinguish between the droppings, the loot, the point things, the little square things that the enemy drops to increase your points or increase your health, increase your shield. I found those were a little difficult to distinguish between the enemies because everything's square. So I was and all the bullets, majority anyway. And so I was thinking constantly avoid all bullets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I know I get what you mean. It's pretty much a game based about squares. So, but the thing
Hmm.
I tried to accomplish was everything dangerous is colorful. Everything not colorful is not dangerous.
Everything dangerous is colourful. That's quite the opposite, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you think? That's pretty good. So, what was your happiest moment while working on the game?
Uh, Probably being signed by Adult Swim Games, which is something I had no idea that would happen when I started out. I didn't really have such ambitions to go that far, but it just kept on going and going and going, kind of like a snowball effect. And
Ah,
until the point that Adult Swim Games came along and said, "Hey, we like your game. Can we talk about it?" And pretty soon
hmm.
after, a publishing team came around and just made it possible for me to push the game even further.
Ah, I see. This kind of goes into the question later on, but it's still pretty relevant about how you promoted the game. So you packed it with so much value, and a publisher approached you, or did you approach them, or was it completely out of the blue, or how did it happen exactly?
It was pretty much out of the blue. It's also followed. I did a Kickstarter, and
Mm-hmm.
I was able to successfully fund the game. It was kind of like an experimental Kickstarter because it was new over here in the Netherlands. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty much one of the first game Kickstarters over here in the Netherlands that were launched.
I see.
And
Uh-huh.
just, kind of see what happens. And it got funded successfully with a pretty good margin. And I think based on that, Adult Swim Games saw, hey, this game has potential. Let's reach out to the developer and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. But before we just jump on to how to promote the game, tell me, what was your light bulb moment while working on the game where everything came together? It went from pen and paper to PC.
The light bulb moment.
Yes.
Well, probably it was. Yeah, let's see. It probably comes back down again to the Adult Swim Games moment. It
Mm-hmm.
was, well, the main reason for that for that answer is because back then I had this wild idea of making the roguelike open world game mode, which is now in the game. But back then it was just an idea, and it was just about like halfway through development. And the Kickstarter was partly started to fund that gameplay mode, the roguelike mode. But it didn't
Mm-hmm.
reach that stretch goal. The stretch goal was too far away to reach it. So, but Adult Sim Games saw it and said to me, "From hey, we kind of like the idea of that gameplay mode. We can give you the funds to make it happen. Can you do it? Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Yeah, heck yeah, for sure." So and then everything
Mm-hmm.
started going in high speed mode. I gotta think of all those things I want to put in the gameplay mode, and it started really coming together. And it's it's interesting because you're playing the same game, but between the two different gameplay modes, the old school shoot 'em up mode and the roguelike mode, it feels completely different how the game plays, which is really like, oh wow, that can really happen. Using the same mechanics, the same weapons, the same enemies, but just put them in a different context, and something completely different happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really like, cool, yeah, this works.
And speaking of your publisher, was there any other ways that you promoted the game? You put it on Kickstarter, so that's kind of inadvertently marketing the game as well. But did you try anything else out there to generate interest or intrigue?
Locally, I went to a lot of game shows here and showcases and did a lot of stuff for that. And you have the usual social media stuff that you can do easily. And I also launched at the same time with the Kickstarter Greenlight campaign to get on Steam.
Mm-hmm. Ah, uh-huh.
So I have those cross-media, cross-promotional effects going on between Kickstarter and Greenlight, which is always nice to have going on.
So you had them launch at the same time exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear that's a very good strategy to get more publicity
Yep.
because if people see it on Greenlight or see it on Kickstarter, they like the look of it. And they realize it's on the other one, so they support it rather than just passing by and just come and go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you get a lot of traffic on both occasions, both on the Kickstarter page and on the Greenlight page. So you might as well make those people who come across the Greenlight page notice that there's a Kickstarter going on. Go over there and support it. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
nice by the Greenlight page that you can just smack right in that you have a Kickstarter going on with the progress and all. It's just featured right there. So it's a really useful thing to do.
Oh, cool. Very useful. Cool. So tell me, Rude, Rude, what was cut from the game and why?
Probably some special weapons in the game. Well, when you play the
Mm-hmm.
game, you can choose between two different weapons, and it ranges from like large lasers to homing missiles to black holes and time jumps. And there were a couple of weapons which just didn't really fit. And so I had to make the decision: do I want them in? They're cool, they sound cool, but are they really purposeful for the game? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's an important design decision to make in this game specifically. Is looking at your levels and the challenges you have in your levels and designing suitable weapons for those challenges, and not the other way around. Is you have to really
Mm-hmm.
focus on what purpose do your weapons have in the levels you want to make. Because
Do you?
if you make weapons without purpose, then they are just no, really not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's there just for the sake of it, and I don't think at times it would add to the fun or may make the game too big or too complicated.
Yeah,
Is that what you also felt?
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's awesome and fun to cramp as much as stuff as possible, which seems fun in the game, but you really gotta know your limits and you really gotta shave down on the unnecessary. No, you wanna keep your core stable and steady and maintained, and and just really focus on that specific experience you want to express.
Keep the core things and keep to that specific experience you want to express. That's beautiful advice, Ruud. Something worthwhile writing down, Overload Nation.
Thank you.
So, what was the biggest thing you learnt while working on the game?
Well, the biggest thing is just everything. It's hard to answer that question for me because when I started out, I didn't really know anything. I had zero experience in the field of game development and design. The only thing I had was about like 15 to 20 years of playing games. So you
Hmm.
could say I have a bit of a gaming literacy. It's probably a right word for it.
So, you had that gamer perspective,
Yeah, exactly.
and that also helped with keeping up the game, keeping at it. Because if you didn't love it or love the game as a whole or what you were doing, you probably wouldn't have kept doing it.
Yeah,
Do you agree?
yes.
Hmm.
And it also kind of made me forced to focus on mechanics. Because
Hmm.
if you're a starting developer and you don't really know much about coding or development design, anything like that, then you can't really start out building like an MMORPG, you know? That's just a bad idea. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think that you want it, what you're aiming for. You want to at least do it. If you're a writer, you want to write. If you're a blogger, you want to blog. If you want to interview people, you interview people. If you want to make a game, you make a game. And then you slowly learn from your mistakes and all the mistakes of others and read books and you learn and you get better over time and quite arguably exponentially. Did you feel that as well and experience that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely something you have to stimulate for yourself. Because
Hmm.
sometimes when you're working on a project for an extended period of time, you can kind of feel like you're reaching the top of your level that is needed for that project. But you shouldn't stop learning there. You should start learning beyond that level. Keep on
Hmm.
progressing what you know, keep on gaining knowledge, and yeah, and maybe you don't really have like an uh, specific object that you can apply it in that current project, but maybe it's useful for another project further down the line.
Oh, exactly. Things you can learn now could be helpful later on in the future. You might not know it now and it could be a little useless or a little abstract or out of the blue, but in hindsight, you realize that subject A you learned on day one or something was very useful later on and it influenced product B at another time.
Yeah, definitely.
You're using Unity for the engine, right?
Yes.
I thought so. When you launch it, there's all the options like what resolution, windowed, and fastest or best performance.
Exactly.
And how did you find Unity? How did you find it?
It was recommended to me by a friend who did a game design program on a college, and he said he had a lot of good experiences with it. And I was looking around just to poke around in game development engines. I looked
Mm-hmm.
at Unreal as well, but Unity just really struck out to me because of the huge community support and fairly easy to get into.
Mm-hmm.
That really struck out to me because it's also free and you can do a lot with the free version.
I get you. So, what was the worst moment that happened, and how did you overcome it?
The worst moment that happens.
Yeah,
Uh,
whether it was whether it was code that wasn't working, or some outsource art or code that didn't come back on time, or there was just problems that you, in general, that you couldn't understand why.
well, it's not really a specific moment, but more like moments, and those are the moments where you just really thicken the code, but there's a huge grind in front of you. You gotta put in all these variables and I'll lay them all out and assign them. And sometimes tiny things just take up, 2, 3 days just grinding out code. And that can be like, a huge wall that you have to push through.
A huge what? Huge boulder or
Just a huge obstacle to get through.
obstacle? Oh right,
just a
yes.
pain in the ass to get through, but just persist and, stick with it.
Yeah, stick with it.
Yeah.
Love that. So, what was the best game development related purchase or investment you made? Whether it was a software license, top quality piece of hardware, or equipment, or it could simply be a comfortable chair and a good desk.
Well, probably more of the latter category. I bought myself a wireless keyboard so I could be able to code from the couch.
What?
Yeah, it's a pretty good investment, I'd say. A wireless keyboard so I can just chill on the sofa and code from there on the television.
And how far away is the screen for you to be able to do that? A
Uh,
meter or two or three? Well, probably more, but
about 2 meters, yeah, probably something like that.
wow, I can picture that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I can't really do
That's
it all day because then you just get a lazy ass. But the
well,
later hours of the day, it's quite nice just to sit down and take it easy, watch some television on the side.
I always thought that would be a bit of a distraction, but coding on the couch, that's different. That's nice. That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So tell me, uh, what game development related book, lecture, or learning resource can you recommend?
Um, well, if you're like me and you're a starting developer, not really much knowledge on the belt, then I would just recommend to dive into the Unity community. It's not really a specific book or talk or whatever. It's just all the information that is out there. Start with your project. If you have questions, look it up in the Unity community. You'll find lots of answers and a lot of information. Just go through the coding reference and read up on it and see what your possibilities are. That is really just the best tool and the best information that you can possibly have at hand.
That is cool. Asking people and getting questions because there's nothing wrong with learning from your mistakes, but you can also learn from the mistakes of other people. So if they came to the same conclusion or the answer to what you're looking for in, say, 10 hours, and you find that answer by just simply reading it in, say, 10 minutes, you've saved yourself potentially infinite amount of time by just learning from other people.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be afraid to ask. No,
Oh, yeah,
people are
definitely.
nice. They're willing to help out. So just go out there.
Yeah, if I didn't ask you, I wouldn't be talking to you now. Like an Evernote or a Trello, do you have a useful or productivity enhancing software, app, extension, or website worth sharing?
Let's see. Well, one app I recently discovered and I'm using to schedule meetings with is Calendly. I'll give you the link in a moment. And it's basically, just a free-form open source scheduling application for web. It's quite nice for when you're going to Gamescom as a developer and you want to schedule meetings. Send your press contacts over there, and they can just freely schedule in and make it easy for them.
Oh yes. Oh, it sounds very useful, Hood. Sounds very useful. I can only imagine where you could have found that because that sounds amazingly useful.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, yeah. Would it also translate between time zones as well?
Yeah, definitely. You can set it to other people's time zones or your own time zones.
Oh, wow, that's everything you need for what like event management.
Yeah. Well,
And speaking of,
to
go on.
complement that recommendation, I also have another one which is called Godenki or Godenki. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Well, I'll give you the link for it as well. These names of Calendly and Godenki, I don't know where they get them from. But
What is that golden key? What is that
it's
exactly?
an easy way to do key giveaways. If you have Steam keys and you want to give them away for a concept for contest, then it's just
I
an
see.
easy plugin you can throw up on your website or a link to share around, and just easily give out keys automatically.
Hmm.
So just a good way to promote your product and reach out.
Ah, cool. So how do you spell that exactly?
GODAN key. So it's like
Godan key.
yes.
Cool. Sounds very useful. And lastly, Ruud, what advice can you give to aspiring game developers, small indie studios, or people trying to get where you are?
Well, we kind of already covered that topic, and it's pretty much just stick with your core. Think of something fun and mechanically sound, and really focus on that, and don't add too much around it. Really keep it small, compact, and really solid. That's just the best advice I can give to anyone. Don't start imagining that the world is open to you and that's all the possibilities are endless. Just start small, get a good idea, and focus on that.
Hmm. There's a quote I like to share from the founder of LinkedIn that if you were embarrassed by the launch of your first project, no, if you're not embarrassed, not embarrassed, you waited too long.
All right, yeah, just get it out there.
Exactly. And there's another one that I discovered a while ago called Focus, FOCUS, and that stands for Follow One Course Until Success.
Yep, for sure. But also
And
know not to go too far.
yes, but well, yes, that's a different story. But
Yeah,
yeah, follow one course, stick to the game, the general idea, the mechanic, and don't go too far all over the place
yeah,
until
because
you get success.
your project has to finish as well. Don't stick with the same project for 10 years because you want to finish it.
Exactly,
That's also
exactly.
like a really important thing. Finish what you start.
Finish what you start. I like that as well. Okay, well, Ruud, that's that's all we have time for on this episode of Daily Dev Talk.
All right, excellent.
It was great talking to you.
Thank you for
Nice,
having me.
nice to pick your brain and get other ideas for other developers out there.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Daily Dev Talk with me, Adrian Nantchev. If you are a game developer that wants to get your name and game out there and to share your experiences and stories, or you have feedback or opinions of the show, then contact me at info@gameoverload.co.uk. That's info@gameoverload.co.uk. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode, more to come.